Hello and welcome to Waves Open Sessions. My name is Marcelo and I'm your moderator for this webinar. Today we'll be having a masterclass with legendary and multiple Grammy-winning mixing engineer Chris Lord-Alge. His mixes have been heard on countless records from artists such as Green Day, Bruce Springsteen, Muse, Keith Urban, and so many others. In just a minute, Chris is going to open up a session he mixed in order to show you his personal mixing tips and techniques. Chris will be using in-ear headphones during the webinar to prevent the speakers from leaking into his microphone. We encourage you to listen to the webinar with headphones or suitable monitors, not from laptop speakers, so you can get the best possible listening experience. We also encourage you to post your comments on the webinar on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using the hashtag WavesOpenSessions. Throughout the webinar, we'll be having an open Q&A with Chris via the chat. Please submit any questions you have and Chris will try to answer as many of them as we can get to. You can send your questions in at any time, but you won't see them in the chat as they'll first go to me and then I'll read them to Chris one at a time. And now, let me welcome our presenter for today's masterclass, the Lord of the Mix himself, mixing engineer whose credits read like a who's who of rock and pop royalty, and he's here to show us how he does it. Please welcome Chris Lord-Alge to Waves Open Sessions. Take it away, Chris.
Greetings. Thank you, Marcelo. Greetings, world. Welcome to downtown Los Angeles. I am CLA, and here we are. I've come down here to show you a few tips and tricks and let you know what is happening in the world of CLA and what I do. Inside a session, inside the box, inside. So we are inside downtown LA here, and I know everyone out there could be anywhere from Zimbabwe to Algeria to Scandinavia to Tel Aviv to Seattle to Los Angeles. So welcome, here we are. So let's first talk about the most important thing. Now we're looking at my session right now. What I have here is an artist named Ivo. He's one of my friends. He's a Swiss artist, very big in Switzerland, and we actually wrote a song together, and I'm actually part writer on this. So we put a song together called Peace and Freedom. And, the song really isn't what's important here. What's really important is what am I doing with it, right? And why am I making it so it's manageable? So I brought this song in here, something I was happy with, but something that was pretty large to begin with. And I'm showing you the condensed version of it, and I'm going to explain to you what created this, okay? And what made it simple. The most important thing to mixing and to what I do is organizing a session, all right? The biggest problem I have as a mixer, and I've mixed maybe 20,000 songs at this point, okay? Not all 20,000 of those songs were with Pro Tools, okay? I'm sure the first batch of them were on these things that went round and round. They're called analog tapes. So 24 track, 48 track, 72 track, whatever, okay? It was a lot easier back then. Why? Because what I got is what I had. Today in sessions, what's in there, it can change quickly. So the source material I had to mix from was fixed, okay? It was 22 tracks or 46 tracks or more if there was more slave reels, right? And then we'd copy that to a 48 track tape machine, make a comp master, and then have 48 tracks. And that was the limit unless I locked up two 96K, two 48 track machines to make 96 channels. That didn't happen that often. But now all of you can run all the way up to 500 tracks or whatever. We can't mix 500 tracks, okay? And even 200 tracks. It's a huge friggin' nightmare, and it's unmanageable. I'm going to scroll down the screen, okay? Look how quick there's the song, okay? This was like 200 tracks, all right? This was a huge mess. But I'm going to show you why it's not a huge mess, all right? First off, the way my sessions are situated, I try to organize it so everything is in the same place, always. And I try to come up with colors that work for me. All right, if you look at this quickly, You notice that my drums down here, this bucket, it's red. My bass is purple, okay? My keyboards and guitars are green. My vocals are always blue, okay? I'll make the lead vocal dark blue and the background's lighter blue. With the guitars, sometimes I'll shade the acoustic to be more yellow, so it's not just a big green blob. All right? People out there, you can all use whatever color you want. Once you start using the same color all the time, you look at any session and automatically your eyes go, oh, green guitars. Oh, blue vocals. Oh, red drums. It makes it easy for me to make it make sense. Because what do I want to do? I want to mix a song, not sit there trying to navigate it. If you look above at the top of our screen, obviously I put the cues in there. Keep it short and sweet, all right? It doesn't have to be a whole sentence every time, right? Look, I have V1, C1, V2, C2, bridge, R1. R1 is reintro. I try not to use the same letter. Now this goes back to because I work in a console, I don't want to have B1 or bridge. I want to make sure everything's a different letter, okay? So make the cues simple so the navigation's easy. Don't make it a complicated route. Don't make it stupid. So back to the way the session looks. This is really important, okay? Look, you look at this and go, oh, I could mix that in 5 minutes. Well, yeah. Well, if I do the homework and prep it, then I can focus on just this working and not this long scroll down from the North Pole to the South Pole, okay? This is manageable, and this can be anything. Why do the drums have more tracks than anything else? Well, because sometimes that becomes the thing I need to deal with the most. Okay. So let's go back and look why. I always put some keyboards before the vocals. Now, why I do that is because this is a direct translation into the way my mixing desk is. If I switch the screen, wow, look how small that is. Doesn't even fill the screen. If you look at my console, all right, let's dismiss the mix master and the bus master, okay? That's just when you're mixing in the box. You have that, right? These top two, which is your, these are outputs. This is where the whole song goes, right? Buses 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4 is the bus master, correct? So let's go back to this. Very simply, right? I always have 4 tracks next to me, or 6 tracks in this case, next to me on the left, okay, which on my console would be 9 through 12. Then it skips, and the lead vocal, which you see right here, starts at 17. This tends to be my vocal bucket. Now, in this song, I have a lead vocal on 17. I have 1 pair of stereo backgrounds, another pair of stereo backgrounds. Now, on this, because I use plugins to turn a mono vocal into stereo, this is now stereo, as you see by the pan pots. So we have 3 stereo faders here, then a break. In my world, I have this section. I have the guitars, then the drums, hence the layout, okay? And if you see here, the mono tracks pan, and then we move to the kicks, and then they're mono. Follow what I'm saying? And then we have all the stereo tracks to follow. So we'll go back to this window, all right? I'm going to now just play a piece of the song so you're familiar with what you're looking at, all right? So this is now a session. So before I play, I'll just explain quickly that all these tracks that say CM, okay? All of you that are familiar with the new Pro Tools 12.8.2 or 12.8.1, I think I'm 12.8.2 now, in the 12 upgrade, okay? In the 12 upgrade, what we have is a commit function. So you can take, for example, all right, what turned this vocal into 1 track for me could have been a verse vocal, right? A chorus vocal, a verse 2 vocal, a bridge vocal. It was most likely 6 tracks, okay? Well, these 6 tracks don't overlap. So, and they're pretty much the same sound. And if they aren't, I can EQ them separately. Once that job is done, and even if I don't do anything but combine them, these 6 tracks become 1 track, okay? made stereo now because plugins I'm using on it bring it to that place. A situation here where I have a piano, okay? This is probably a CM track. If it's not, the whole song has one stereo piano, right? If you also look here, you have these strings, okay? It says CM, so that means that these were probably 2 to 4 or 6 pairs. Maybe it was just 4 pairs. If you start looking at the numbers and you start adding it up, I'm making the song way more manageable by putting these things into one pair. If it's coming out as a pair, if it's left and right, if you can do the same treatment, if you can pre-treat it, why make it take up any more real estate, all right? To me, the biggest thing is mixing is a definition of manageability, and real estate becomes a very important part of that, all right? Most of the sessions I see, you're going so far and wide. You're going from California to New York trying to find the song. For me, I can get the whole song to work in one county. I don't even need to go into a state. So what I mean by that is I can get it manageable. So let's just play a piece of this so I remember what song I brought here.
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher to the top of the world. Gonna sing a little louder until we are heard. Wanna tell you that it's time for peace and freedom. Gonna sing to my sisters. Gonna ring like a bell. Gonna shout to my brothers. Got stories to tell. Gotta wake each other from under the spell. 'Cause we...
Now you see, because the real estate is so small, I feel that I can just reach out and fix it so easily. So I'm going to just play again. I'm just going to pick up, play one more time. I'm just going to start soloing a few things just to show you that these CMs, these comps you see here, right? And this is the most important thing to mixing, okay? This is the thing, because I've crossed like many years and many formats, I've realized that organizing is the most important part of mixing. Once you can organize it, you can manage it. If you can't control it, you can't mix it. So this becomes your mission as an engineer, as a producer, as a mixer, okay? If you leave a trail of wreckage when you make a song, you just keep recording and whatever and make it into something that's confusing, good luck later, okay? When I see sessions like that, I know I'm dealing with freaking amateurs, right? When I see sessions that people have taken more than 5 minutes to name it, clean it up, get rid of the regions, or at least if you're going to give me regions, make it make sense, okay? If I see something that looks like a pig pen, I know that your production techniques is a mess and that you have no style and no actual respect for the music or the session. And I know that sounds pretty harsh, but this is the mentality I'm trying to teach here. It's really simple, okay? When I open a session from you, or when someone opens a session for me, 100 years down the line, 50, 10, whatever, when you're not available or gone, you are judged by what it is. So I don't want to be judged unfairly. I want to try to deliver my best thoughts forward. So let's just look at a few more of these tracks. As you see, there's some more CMs here. Background's the same thing. Okay, background 1. Choir, I like to use short names. I hate a long name. I hate when it says AC, the guitar mic, the country, the state, the dress the singer was wearing, to the point where when it gets to the short term at the left, it's like hieroglyphics. Use the least amount of letters possible to describe, okay, what is on that track, okay? When it has all the revisions from, once you've made the comp, right? Once you've decided that this is the vocal, this is the piano, this is the uke freaking lele, right? At least then just call it uke. You have to call it uke 1. If it's 2 ukes, call it uke 1 and uke 2. Think about it as call it what the instrument is. If you want to have details about miking and blah 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 and all that, and I use this mic on that room and this mic on that room, then put a cheat sheet with it. Put it in the comments, okay? Put in the comments that, lead vocal 47, lead vocal SM7. Okay, if that helps you, great. But when it comes down to the comp, lead vocal LV. This way, when I look at it quickly, I'm like, boom, 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 here we go.
So there's actually a question here that I think would tie in well to that. They're asking, what are the first 5 things you do to any vocal to get it to sit well in the mix?
Okay, well, here's a question right away. First, since I'm talking about organization, if you're talking first 5 things you do to a vocal to get it to sit in the mix. First, I make a vocal comp, all right? If you look at my vocal right here, okay, let's make it big. Let me make it big here. Look, let's make it big, right? Okay, when you look at that vocal, that's 1 track. Now, if you have a vocal that overlaps, then it's 2 tracks, right? But this is a vocal that doesn't overlap, right? If you look at it, what do you see? You see it's on 1 track, but also what do you see? That the waveform is consistent, all right? Once you have a consistent level across the board, whatever you do to it's going to make sense, right? So we're going to talk about some vocal processing really simply here, right? I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary. You take an EQ. What am I doing? I'm taking away some rumble, all right? And I'll solo the vocal. Let's just solo it and play it for you.
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher. To the top of the world. Gonna sing a little louder. Until we are heard. Wanna tell you that it's time for peace and freedom.
So simply on this, once you get the vocal to be 1 track or more organized, this is my taste. I'm taking an EQ that I like, which is the SSL EQ. I'm taking out some rumble. I'm adding some shine. That's it, all right? See that line amps down a little bit here? That's only so it doesn't blow up the plugin, all right? Then I go into, look, I could use any plugin. I'm using this because I like it because I have the hardware. Is it on any special setting? No, it's on really the stock setting, okay? This is helping give it some character. Then here, I'm only using this to do what? To add a little top end, right? To add a little reverb, to add some delay, and it makes it stereo because the reverb stereo, right? So if we go back here, and let's just try a bridge, right?
No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery if there is peace and there is freedom.
So what I just showed you there, right, is, this is just a start point. This is just what I do to get the song to make sense. So if I play that song right there, let's just play the same spot. Just listen to the song without the solo here, of course, right?
No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery if there is peace and there is freedom.
So in the track, the most important thing is, how does the vocal sound in the track? Nobody's going to ever hear it in solo, okay? Nobody cares. So I always make my adjustments to anything in context of the music. Because guess what? Nobody cares in solo. All right, you want to check some stuff in solo just to make sure that your start point is great? That's fine, okay? So there's my questions. First 5 things. First thing, okay? Get the vocal to be on 1 track. 2, get the vocal to be all the same level with clip gain if you have to. Okay. 3, consolidate it, right? Get it to a great level. Then 4, pick an EQ. 5, pick a compressor that makes sense. And then within the 5th answer there, find an effect. From this point, you can get more complicated with effects, but for the song, 99% of what's going to work in this song, it's exactly what I have. Good question there. So, Mauricio, while we're looking at this, want to take another question?
Yeah, do you compress before or after you EQ?
So simple question there. I always compress after EQ. I want to because I want the EQ to feed into the compressor because it makes a combination sound. If you're adding all this top end after the compressor, the top end's gonna jump out. What happens is whatever you're EQing, those points get pulled back by the compressor. So it actually helps you. Okay. This kind of keeps me from having to use the de-esser.
And as far as guitars go, do you duplicate, pan left and right, and switch phase on guitar parts? And if so, how do you make those decisions?
Well, so okay, let's look at that question for a second. All right. So let's say that one more time a little slower, Marcelo.
Sure. Do you duplicate guitar tracks, pan them left and right, and switch phase on them?
Well, I mean, the only way I would do that is if I'm checking microphones. If a guitar is multi-mic, all right, for example, if a guitar is multi-mic, I'm not going to pan them, okay? I'm not going to duplicate them. I am going to put them all up the center and then flip the phase while they're in the center. And then if I hear the low ends go away or start to hear some sound I don't like, I can figure out that there's an issue. So if you must be talking about multi-micing, because why am I going to check the phase on the guitar, right? The reason I would check phase on anything is you put the multiple sources up the middle at the same level, right? Then flip the phase on each one, or you can compare one with another, or if it's 4 mics, you flip the phase and look at the combination that you like. Now, it may not make sense, but all that matters is what you like. Now, if you think there's a problem, look at the look at the waveform. If all the waveforms start exactly at the same time, then that is just a phase thing. If you see some are differently or later than others, you may want to shift them to all have the same start time, then flip the phase. So there's your guitar question, but panning left and right because,
And for the CLA mixdown, do you have a recommended input level, for example, -6 dB?
Well, I mean, there's no recommended mix level. There's no recommended. If you want to answer that question right now, since we'll forward to that if you'd like, I'll show you if you want to discuss mixdown. So it's really simple. We can play the song, and here's our bus master. I'm going to just make this a little bigger. They invented Pro Tools and all this stuff because it was a cheaper way to make audio. So don't think that you're working on the highest technology there is in the world. We're just trying to make it work. The highest technology in the world was consoles and outboard gear and then adding electronics to work with it. So let's look at this mix bust down thing here for a second. I'm going to play this song and highlight it.
No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery.
So here's the secret. Okay, I made this plugin, and we're going to put it over here where you can see it. All right about here, I think. If you can all see that, one day we'll be able to take the GUI and make the GUI fill the screen, but right now we don't have that technology. But here's my mixdown plugin, okay? It's really simple how this works. If you want to get the best out of this plugin, see how it's set? It's zeros across. Why is it that? Because that's how I built it, to emulate what I use. So, if you put this on your mix master, you put on a master fader or an aux or whatever, run your whole mix into an aux feeding this. Why do we want to do that, Chris? Because what you want to see is it moving 3 dB. You don't want to have to move this up and down. No. The gain structure here I have set is, I can get it back to 0 again. I have designed this so if you feed it with the exact right level, you'll get the perfect reaction to get the CLA sound. So I'm going to show you again. What I'm going to do is adjust the bus master. Now what this is everything in your session is busing to 1 and 2, right? Everything is busing to an aux. From that aux, you're sending to another aux where the plugin is. So I'm using an aux just to control the overall volume of the whole mix leading into another channel, right, which has the bus limiter on it. You could say, well, why don't you just use the input fader? Well, no, because if you're hitting that too hard and you're lowering the input fader, it's going to sound different. You want this thing to be set as you see it. So as you see it right now is what you want it. Now, I'm going to play the song again. I'll play it from the bridge or to the left. All right, you turn it down. It's not doing anything. See right there. As you notice, I'm sitting there trying to get it to hang out between 2 and 3 because that's where it sounds the best. When I start pushing it and it's doing 5 and 7 dB of gain reduction, the input's overloading, and even if you bring the fader down, which I'll show you, if you're not using an aux and this is what your bus looks like and you have to bring this input down, it doesn't sound as good, okay? It sounds kind of like shit, basically. So you want to do what I'm doing. This is why I recommend it. Look, mixing is all about gain structure. If you don't have your gain structure set up in your session, I don't care if you're digital. It's going to sound like crap. It's just going to be distorting, overdriving. Plugins aren't going to sound right. So how you deal with gain and structure is right. So let me just put this back the way it's supposed to be. So back on up, kiddies. And then let's bring our bus master back to whatever. You know, I'm not remembering where it is because I don't care because I use my ears. I don't say, well, it sounded really good at minus 2.4 or minus 3.6. Who gives a shit about that? Use your damn ears. Here we go, right? And while we're on the mixdown subject, and I have it open, I'm going to show you the difference here, why these other faders, what they mean. So we'll start the same spot. So what I just did there for you was I boosted up the bass, the treble, the glue. Okay, the glue control, obviously you can see that's your gain reduction control. So that shows you how much compression you're getting, right? Doesn't mean you can run it hot and then bring that down. It's built to run at 0. The drive control, now that's your personal taste. You want it to sound a little bit more edgy, a little more overdriven. The drive gives you the effect that you're overdriving the console. I run my console hot, so the 0 is the hot spot. More than that, okay, is driving it harder. So that's why this plugin's pretty much, it's a no-brainer. It works at the preset 000. It's like you don't even need those buttons to be on. But if you want to make it brighter or darker, or maybe you don't want any EQ, okay, here you go. So obviously that's bypass, right? Even though it's on 0, doesn't mean that under the hood I'm not doing something. So if you turn it off, it's no EQ. The EQ is post-compressor. I'm EQing after the fact because I don't want to drive the compressor with my mix. I'm adding like mastering EQ after the fact, right? That's part of what I do, right? So EQ after the compression, right? If you turn these off, then it's no EQ in the mix bus, which means it's flat, it's 0. When it's on at 0, it's the amount that I like. What is that amount? I don't even know. I just know it's the curve that makes sense for matching my system. So this is just adding more or less. So, and the glue is how much I do. So I think that's a really good involved answer because this is a new plugin. You haven't had much time to use it, but it's really designed to work under specific rules. There you have it, mixed down.
And what is the reason for turning a mono vocal to stereo?
Easy question. All right, here it's there's no reason for it, but what happens is when we go over here, as soon as you put one of my plugins on anything, it turns it stereo. Why? Why do you ask? Okay, let's solo the vocal, and you all have all have earphones, earbuds, speakers. iPhone's not going to help you here, okay? You're not going to hear this. So just solo him.
No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery. If there is peace and there is freedom. No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you.
So, what do you hear? Okay, because my plugin is an all-in-one, right? Of course it's going to be stereo because the chamber, the reverb, whatever I have there, right? It's stereo. The delay, I've stereoized it because that's what I use. Okay, that's my sound. You also have a harmonizer, you have a spreading device, harmonizer, chorusing, whatever. You know what? What's under the hood is just the CLA Vision. So every one of my plugins does this. Why turn a mono vocal to stereo? Because now you have all you need for the vocal in one box. Everybody wins. Now, you can do it to anything. You don't have to run the vocal in stereo. You can get rid of this plugin, have a mono track, and then create sends and auxes and whatever, or duplicate the vocal and put plugins on it that way. So that answers the question why this is stereo, because the plugin does it.
And what a lot of people are asking is, how do you get the kick and bass to work together?
So let's just look at the drums for a second, okay? One of the ways I get drums to work is because I work in analog, right? When you work in an analog console with analog line amps, then, making this stuff work is easier because you're dealing with a format that's non-digital. So we'll just try soloing this stuff up for a second, right? There's a few drums here. And we'll look at some EQs while it's going. Let's just turn him off. Heard enough of him. Okay. That's okay. No, he's a good guy, so come on. We'll have the bass in there. So just a kick mic, okay? This kick was pretty good. I'm going to have to talk over it a little bit, so for everyone have speakers out there. It just makes sense if I describe it as it's playing right now. So if you want to turn it down or whatever, I don't want to stop every time. As you see, I already had a good kick drum, so what am I doing? I'm adding a shit ton of 8K and a little bit of compression. Then if we look at the second kick, it's similar thing. I'm adding some top end to the second mic. Same compressor, right? Let's look at the snare drum. Okay, so here's a snare. That's getting some low end and some top, but then we're going to my plugin. Believe it or not, I'm using the overhead preset on this. And even brighter, right? How about more reverb? Then, if I go down to snare 2, just listen to that one snare. Now, the original question is, how do you get the kick and bass to sound so good? Well, because you know what? I keep it simple. If you look here, am I compressing the kick to all bejesus? No. When the guy's playing a kick drum, I mean, is he that dynamic? No. Then we go down here to we'll look at the bass setting just to say, well, what's the magic on the bass then there, Mr. Alge? Look, what's the bass getting? Here's the secret to the bass thing, okay? If you're starting to add bass EQ, right? Let's look at the bass plugin. You got a bass guitar. Pick the one that works. If it's the DI, great. You're better off with the DI if it had no EQ added to it, right? If the amp thing isn't working, or if you can't get the amp sound you want, use an amp simulator. For this one, because not to say my plugin's the only plugin there is out there, but I made it. I know what it does, so it's easier for me. On mine, look, I have EQ called honk, right? It's called honk because it's a bass plugin. So yeah, I want the bass to have some more honk or bark or cut or whatever, right? So those terms I'm using kind of relate to bass, right? And with distortion, I have rip, roar, and growl. So I'm just going to play it again. Oh, even more distorted. For this one, I didn't want the bass to be like shredding. I just want it to be driving like an amp cranked up. So back to your question. Look, am I adding any low end to the bass? No. If I start going like this and pick like 100, that note's going to pop out. For me, the biggest problem I get is people over EQ the bass, and then one note sticks out and another one goes away. So simple question there is that the way you're going to make bass and drums match and be together is keep it simple. If you're adding X amount of compression to a kick drum, add X amount of compression to the bass. I mean, look at them both as the same thing. Don't look at them as individuals. They have to work together. So another question to answer for you. So Marcel, any more questions?
Yes, a lot of people want to know if you use parallel compression, especially on drums, and if you could share a few tips about it.
Okay, so let's demyth this parallel compression situation. Okay, so what is it and what does it do, right? You have this whole drum kit here, right? We look at the Busmaster. This might as well be your parallel compressor. So let's just say this is just my drum mix, right? Parallel compression is going to be this right here. Right? Except, since we're monitoring through this can't be it. So we'd have to have this in addition, right? So then all it really is, I'm going to close this plugin. All it really is, and I use it, but it's like all it is to get a little bit more top and a little bit more bottom, okay? It's not for the compressor. The compression doesn't really help it. So all you're going to do is whatever balance I have with the drums here, which I'll play a little bit more. So we take this whole balance of drums right here. I'm going to try from like here. Or here. Little crashy. Let's just try here then. All you're going to do is you're going to take all these drums, you're going to send them to a bus, right? In addition to where they're normally going, it's going to be an additive bus. You probably use a send, right? You could use, I'm sorry, what do you call these guys here? I'm not even going to look for it right now, but my point is you could add the sends. You could put all these sends on here, right? And then send the drums to another compressor. The way parallel works is that whatever your balance is you have in the drums, you send the exact same level. You put every one of them at 0, right? Send it off to another compressor, and have that coming back and then figure out what you like with it and add it in with the drums. That's parallel compression. I use it. I'm not using it in this session because it doesn't need it. I find I use it more in an analog scenario than I would in a digital scenario. In a digital scenario, I never use it. Why? Because I can get plenty out of the drums digitally. Why I would use it analog, and that's where it came from, is you run out of EQ. You run out of like angst, and you're trying to get like 5% more out of the drums. So what do? You bring up another compressor, top it off, add some EQ. EQ is always after the compressor. So there's my my parallel drum compression answer.
And could you elaborate a little more on gain staging? Do you have a method for how you set gain before you start to process tracks?
Well, there is no perfected way. We can use the gain plugin and look at things and try to get them to a reasonable level. The way I do it is that since I work, or this is bussing out to an analog domain, right? This is coming out of 44 buses or 48 buses, and going out to a analog situation. It's hard for you to judge. The easiest way for you to judge is, and you use a plugin to do this, is even easier, right? Now, how does the plugin react to level? Okay, and this is a simple question. If we just turn these off for a second, I'll tell you how the vocal works. Because this is a way to judge. You look at this plugin, right? We look at the vocal. Here's our clip gain level. We're just going to play. If you have this set like this, okay, this start point, which is set for analog tape level, right? We solo the vocal. We're just going to put these guys off for now. Turn those unsoloed, sorry. The real secret to this, see how I'm doing this? Go back to the vocal. This is very simple, and this is a really easy way to know about gain structure. We'll play the vocal.
No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery. If there is peace and there is freedom.
Let's start here again, verse 1, right?
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher. To the top of the world. Gonna sing a little louder.
For me, if you run a vocal, if you clip gain a vocal up to the point where you're getting between 7 and 10 dB of compression on this plugin, that to me is right at 0. That to me is right in the sweet spot, okay? If you take a kick drum or a bass, as you see with this plugin, since I'm so used to the gain structure of these plugins, and you should be the same way. For example, if you look at the SSL channel, here's a meter, okay? I'm playing the vocal.
Gonna light a little fire.
This is a PPM meter, right? There's not much range left.
A little higher. To the top
It's
of
like
the world.
right there is
Sing a little
0.
louder.
Even though it says 10, it's a PPM meter. So you got to use meters on the plugin. So example, let's go back to this plugin again. And let's look at input, right?
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher.
Because this is not going to show you exactly. This is not the perfect example, but I'm showing you can use plugins, showing that an input, and it helps you show your level. That's the quickest shortcut. I know how plugins react at 0 when they're when the input stage is 0. If I look at a kick drum, if I look at these guys, right?
Gonna light a little fire.
I'll go right here, right?
No God above us would take this from us.
This is right at the root.
And watch our children getting torn from
This is basically using the gain plugin and having it read -1 level-wise. When you have it at -1, it's like right at the analog sweet spot because a kick drum's transient.
No God above us would take this from us, and what you...
It's right at the 0 because this meter is showing PPM, and a transient from a kick drum is going to show more than a VU meter will. This will show 0 on a VU meter, and it'll show 0 here. But what happens is I know that with the thresholds at 0 on this plugin, and I have it about 3-to-1, which we can make it exactly if it makes you guys happy.
No God above us.
Then and look, I'm adding this EQ, so we can turn the EQ back to 0. Right.
No God above us would take the...
So that's no EQ. That's showing the gain structure of this plugin is perfect because I can get basically 3 dB of compression at 0 threshold to 3-to-1. And then when I go here, then I get the sound of the plugin. So it's all about gain structure. So these are just a couple of ways to look at it. I mean, there's now a VU meter plugin coming out that's going to help you, okay, gain up your guitar, gain up your keyboard. Now, a keyboard and a guitar is going to react. A transient is going to look different, so you're going to figure it out. But that's how all this is. You get certain things that the waveform is too low. You got to clip gain it up so it actually reacts to your session. So that's a great question. Any more questions here?
Yeah, you've been showing the CLA 76 blue in this session. Do you have a recommendation about when to use the blue and when to use the black?
Okay, good question right there. So let's let them hear the sound difference, right? Let me turn these solos off. The blue limiter's emulating the blue compressor. Okay, what's the difference between blue and black? The blue one's older and it distorts and it's grimier. Okay, the easiest way to put it, it's grimier and a bit more aggressive. Okay, it's great on vocals, it's great on guitars. It'll turn a snare drum into something more interesting. But the black one is more rock solid if you want the vocal to be clear and not dirty. If you want a bass, if you want a guitar. The black, the revision when it went to black was just later, okay? When they came out with the blue, it was a certain sound. As they progressed with making this compressor, they came up with the black one, and then eventually silver, and it got cleaner. So our emulations that we've created are because the things are, they're just cleaner. So let's just go here, play this.
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher to the top of the world. Gonna sing a little louder until we are.
So there's black, right? Let's go back. Let's just play one more time.
Gonna light a little fire. Love is the word. Gonna climb a little higher to the top of the world. Gonna sing a little louder until we are heard. Wanna tell you that it's time for peace and freedom.
So what the difference I hear there, okay, even though it's subtle, but by doing it that way, it's exactly the same gain, right? The blue one's a little bit more distorted. It's a little bit more woolly, I would say, a little bit more mid-range bump. And the black one is a little bit smoother, and the frequency curve is straighter. It's flatter, right? So that's seasoned to taste, okay? It's like all these tools are there for the chef. It's like, I'm going to use more salt than you, or I'm going to use more pepper. I'm going to use more, cayenne pepper. I'm going to use more cocaine than you. Whatever it is, right? So that's that question. So Marcelo, what else we got? Question department.
So how do you approach depth and dimension? Is it levels, transient content, EQ, reverb delay, or all of it? How do you decide what gets reverb, delay, and what stays dry?
I mean, so that's a pretty broad question, but let's just answer it as simple as we can, right? If you create, I'm going to go through the song here. I'm going to play. I'm going to show you. We're going to look at what has some stuff on it, right? That's probably an easier way.
No God above us would take this from us, and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God who loves you would smile down on this misery. time.
Come on, the Abbey Road. Why not? Everybody wins.
And freedom, time.
I'll tell you the secret. So I just went through this song and showed you just a couple of things. And you're like, well, I'm still not getting it, Chris. All right, well, what you're not getting is that a lot of you take every track, you compress it to all hell, you put too much EQ on it, you don't let anything sit in the track at all. So what happens is everything's so hammered that how can you make dimension? How can you make dimension when every peak and every valley has been flattened out, okay? You've eliminated dynamic. The more you compress something, the less dynamic you're going to have in a song. So since the drums are just getting tapped, okay, and if we go through and look, overheads, I mean, it's like getting tapped, okay? Mono room, nothing. What happens here is that to make depth and to make dimension, you try to look at each part, and if you're going to compress it, try to compress it the least amount you can get away with that makes it work in the song. And then the EQ everything inside the song. If you do all your heavy lifting, right? And you know what? You just can go and reform it any which way you want. The whole thing is the balance, and the way you get the depth and the way you get that is to put the effects on things while they're in a track. Piano. Look at what I had here. I listened to it in the track. I use my ears and hear inside the track, so that's part of it. It's like find an effect, find something. Sometimes when you solo it, when you're done, you're like, wow, you really hammered that one. So, or because I wanted to give it some character in the song. So It's a tough question to answer because that's the whole question, isn't it? Well, how do you make it have all this depth and thing? Is that? But one of the other parts of it is pan everything as wide as possible and try to think that you only have three pans: left, center, and right. I mean, left, LCR. So that answers that question. Marcelo, what do you think? More?
We have one. We can take one last one here.
Okay.
So Gino's saying that he noticed that in your mixes, after a loud guitar chorus, when the second verse kicks in, it's just as energetic, even though the guitars are out. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, in that question, in any song, you have this verse. Okay, you have this verse, and you have this lift and a chorus, and you want to come back down and keep the energy level flowing. Well, what you do is you redirect the listener's ear to what's the next important thing. So you go down to, you're up here in this chorus, is like, for example, right here. We'll go back, we'll play it from the R1. Right?
If there is peace and there is freedom.
You try to redirect the listener to grab their attention with the next important part coming in. So I just make sure that I bait and switch almost. Like, okay, here's big guitars. All right, here's a little guitar off to the left. Okay, now I hear that. So the whole thing is to listen to the song, be part of the song. The song is what matters. What you're doing to it's not important as long as you serve the song and not serve the technical end, or serve the gear, or serve the plugin, or serve the EQ. Don't serve what's going to work for the song. It may be a messy approach in your session. You're going to have to clean up eventually, but serve that. So good question there, Marcelo.
All right, and since we have a couple minutes left, we'll do one more. Could you show an example of how you use CLA Unplugged?
Oh, great plugin, right? So I'm going to do this right now on the vocals. So actually, it's on the piano. So piano, I had a really cool sound on. So, and that's one of the things I use it on a lot of. So let's just play the piano here. Boy, that got boring. Damn. So the CLA Unplugged is, I'm going to talk over this a little bit. CLA Unplugged got two reverbs in it. So then what those buttons do is add pre-delay to those reverbs. Now, this is really sexy on vocals, okay? So I'm just going to show you really quick here. Go back to here, and then we change this out, okay? We change our setting here quickly to the Unplugged, right?
There is freedom.
And then this is going to be cool, right? Let's start here, right?
Sisters, gonna ring like a bell, gonna shout to my brothers. Got stories to tell, gotta wake each other from under the spell, 'cause we know that it's time for peace and freedom. Don't you think that it's time for peace and freedom? No God above us would take this from us and watch our children getting torn from their mothers. No God above you, no God who loves you would smile down on this misery. If there is peace and there is freedom. Sisters, gonna ring like a bell, gonna shout to my brothers. Got stories to tell, gotta wake each other. Sisters, gonna ring like a bell, gonna shout to my brothers.
Now, how freaking cool is that? Okay, here's what it is. Dream On, Aerosmith. Okay, if you know what I mean right there, the vocal with the reverb and the really long pre-delay, you can get this freaking dimension that goes off into the abyss by having the reverb pre-delayed pretty far. By having this, it says 8D and then 4T. This would be eighth note, dotted eighth note. And then you go forward, then you go on the switch forward, which, it's eighth note, right? Then eighth, dotted, then fourth and triplet. It doesn't mean anything except that you go through increments to find a delay that sounds right in the song. Here, dotted eighth puts the reverb in the hole of the vocal that makes sense, and that's how I have to listen to it.
Sisters, gonna ring like a bell, gonna shout to my brothers, got stories to tell, gotta wake each other from under.
It's all you got to use your ear, and you got to get that vision, and I've been transported into the freaking cool place. And this is great for vocals. So I made it all incremental because you never know which one's going to fit right, because it's not an exact science. Okay, I have the vocal. This is the tempo. I need a quarter triplet. I don't freaking know what it's going to be. I know that with this, you can get really dimensional. So there's your unplugged secrets unraveled.
All right, awesome. And that'll do it.
So let's just right here at the finish line, let's recap, okay? Look, the whole thing here with me, I mean, you can't cover this stuff in one trip, but it's showing you a couple of techniques, a couple of reasons why, and the important thing is set yourself up for success. Set your session up for success, okay? Make it as small as possible without making a compromise, right? Then once that's done, and you put plugins on things, get your gain structure in order. Then you can use your mind and use what you hear, a vision, and take it to a place that wouldn't be normally available to other people. Why? Because you've organized the session. B, you've gotten it to be a great balance with gain structure. This way, when you mix and match plugins, it's pretty quick. Now, with my plugins, and I'm not advertising them here, I just use them because I built them and I know what I can get out of them quickly. I don't want to have to friggin' wait around to get a sound. I want to, boom, go to it. So I showed you a couple of tricks within my plugins. So especially the Mixdown plugin, Unplugged, which people don't generally go after, but that's really great for vocal sounds. So until next time, I'm Chris Lord-Alge, and we are downtown LA in the bunker. And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris, for an awesome masterclass. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, let us know in the comments. If you want to see more open sessions like these, let us know. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to the Waves YouTube channel, for more advanced tutorials and future product releases. Thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you at the next Waves Open Sessions.